Hey guys, welcome back to the Bulwark. Look, we did a video yesterday on the drones. Everyone's talking about it, so we decided we had to do another take. In that video yesterday, we referenced multiple tweets by our guest, our esteemed guest here, Matthew Capucci. If you guys don't know Matthew, you should definitely check him out. One of the cooler meteorologist weathermen you want to follow online. He does incredible work. I'm gonna pause for a second. I'm gonna do my usual thing. Please subscribe to the feed. We love subscribers. And then I'm gonna turn it over to Matthew because I want. This isn't like your area of expertise. Maybe it is your area of expertise, but you've been tweeting a lot about this. So I want you to just sort of state your credentials or lack thereof to weigh in on these drones, and then we could start talking about what exactly is going on.
Yeah, so I always joke that my purview is anything from like the ground up, basically anything in the sky, at least I have a basic working knowledge of. And realistically, meteorologists are the only scientists that the public comes across or interacts with on a daily basis, whether it be a TV meteorologist or in my case, a digital broadcast meteorologist. And so even though my degree is in atmospheric sciences, I figure anything that's sort of in the sky is my role to know at least a good amount about.
Okay, that makes you like 99.9% more qualified to discuss the drone issue than everyone else who's discussing the drone issue. So let's just start with the real question that everyone wants to know. What the hell is going on in your estimation?
Honestly, there are a lot of wild cards, but I'm sure there are probably a couple drones out there. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of drones across the United
Right.
States. Some military, some commercial, some are just, Joe Schmo in the backyard with a drone. And leading up to the holidays, I'm sure a lot more people probably have them. There are probably a couple out there. The rest is honestly mass hysteria. We've seen it proliferating with social media. We've seen it sort of snowballing. One person will say they saw something in their backyard, and suddenly everyone's out stargazing and seeing stars and airplanes and military aircraft or even satellites in the sky. And everything becomes a drone report. And once the drone reports are filed, whether or not they're factual or real or authenticated, then the officials have to get involved. And they say, hey, we saw, we got 50, 100 drone reports last night. What's going on? They release a statement saying we're investigating drone reports, which is their due diligence to do. It's their job to investigate
Right.
reports. Then the public says, aha, there are drone reports. The police are talking about it. And then they all go out and they look for more things in the sky. And it's like a self-reinforcing feedback cycle. It's crazy. And I don't know where it stops. The honest answer, I think what it will take to get this to stop is a prolonged period of cloudiness over the eastern U.S. to prevent people from seeing planes or stars. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but it's true. Like that's what's
No.
going to get this to slow down.
So basically, if you had looked up at the sky a month ago, you probably would have seen similar type of activity that you're seeing today. But because enough critical mass of people were looking up at the sky, and then officials, like elected officials, and then federal officials who are in charge of these types of issues, had to weigh in on that critical mass, then it became sort of a snowballing effect. And then more people went outside, looked up at the sky, saw objects, and were like, there it is, there's more drones. That's my summarization of what you basically are saying.
Yeah, and truth be told, there is a social phenomenon called mass hysteria, and it's not to call people hysterical, but it's to say that
Right.
things like this do blow up over time. Back in April of 1954, there was a situation in Washington State where somehow it got rumored that pitted, like bent windshields, were the result not of wear and tear, but rather of bomb testing. And it ran in the newspaper that, if you had a pitted windshield, you might have seen collateral impacts from bomb testing in eastern Washington. So people went out, they saw pitted windshields, and they went, wait a second, mine is pitted. And it never occurred to
Right.
anyone that this was an ordinary thing they otherwise would have just overlooked. And so it ran rampant. The FBI was involved, police were involved, the governor was involved, everybody in Washington state was involved, and everyone had pitted windshields. At one point, there was another conspiracy theory that brewed saying that fleas and like sandflies or sand fleas were laying eggs and causing the windshields to bend. And so there is precedent for something like this to happen before. I think
Right.
in this case, you don't have a lot of people looking up at the sky typically.
And now you do. But
Yeah.
I guess, is it different though that the hysteria in this case is being adopted by people who we elect to represent us, right? And for a reason or other, we assume that these people operate in better faith, with better education, with a bit of a more calmer demeanor. But now we have elected officials running to camera saying this is deeply concerning. It's over these sensitive areas. You have people calling for shooting down these objects without actually knowing what they are. You have senators, Andy Kim, who went out there and then subsequently went out there again and said, actually, you know what? It's probably airplanes.
Yeah.
You have Larry Hogan, and this brings you in. Larry Hogan just going out there on Twitter saying, I've seen these objects. It turns out it was Orion's belt. Is the difference here that the actual people who are involved in the hysteria or seem to be believing it are the people who we, elect to office?
I think there are two things going on. I think number one, the elected officials, have a vested interest in seeing whatever it is the public is seeing. If the public is reporting something, then it garners support for those officials if they can corroborate that. If they say, hey, public voters, you guys are right. Voters love hearing that. And so if the officials can sort of become a part of whatever's going on socially, it does garner them support. So it's in their best interest.
And then, and then the other thing, of course, is that you don't want to be the lawmaker who downplayed it, right? Like, and then it turns out that something was problematic.
You got to cover your rear. It's like, if 1 out of 3 weather models is showing a massive snowstorm and I say it's going to be sunny, even if I believe it'll be sunny, I have to at least qualify a little bit. So that's one of the issues. But the other two, and not to disparage any local officials. I mean, I'm sure I certainly respect the position of governor or former governor. I certainly respect the position of congressman. But Americans in general are not good at recognizing what they don't know. If they look up in the sky, there is a certain amount of hubris to think that you know what every light up there is without having done any diligence or research or background. It took me all of 5 seconds to look at Larry Hogan's video and be like, oh, there's Orion.
That's Orion.
There's Sirius. There's Progenitor or whatever that star is. But then
I did appreciate. Yeah, I did appreciate that you prefaced all your truths with the utmost respect. It was very nice of you. I will say the other element of this, and this is just how social media has allowed for the proliferation of this type of stuff. I want to play a video that has this post on X has almost 5 million views. I live in DC. It was very apparent to me that these were planes because DC has a airport quite literally right across the river. But let's play this video, and I just want to talk on the flip side of it as to how social media is worsening this types of hysteria. Here we go.
I'm telling you that they're not moving; they're staying stationary. They're hovering.
They kind of look wide too.
Look at the lights changing.
It is moving.
No, it's not.
It looks like it.
Yeah, but they're not moving. That's an airplane. Hang on.
Which one? The one closest to the Capitol building?
Hang on, let me zoom that a little bit. Yeah, that's an airplane.
With the one in the middle, that one.
That's an airplane. You can see it moving.
Yeah.
The one to the right, or over here.
The one behind the Capitol building is not an airplane.
Or over here. That's an airplane. Okay.
Yeah, over there is, but look at
that
one.
And I'm saying, like, when you look to the left of the Capitol,
that
those are not moving.
Yeah.
In fact, they are moving. They were planes. It was corrected on a reader note with content. But again, 5 million views is not nothing. And this is happening. This is everywhere right now. Like everywhere right now. And I'm wondering, as someone in this field, like, how has the proliferation of social media and posts like this made your job just almost impossible? I mean, you can't put out all the fires, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn between, do I want to put out good information or do I want to spend my time mitigating bad information? And there's no correct amount. I look like an absolute, a dick if I spend all my day on social media pushing back against
nope.
Uneducated, ignorant people who are intentionally subverting the public. Many of these Twitter accounts are engagement farming. They put something apocryphal, ludicrous out there because they get money each time someone clicks. And unfortunately, the American populace doesn't always know the difference between fact and fiction and can easily be deluded into believing something like this. If it's, close enough to reality, but not quite reality or seems plausible. In that video there, for example, I live in DC too, Reagan National Airport. Yeah. I live right next to the airport. I love watching those planes fly in. I have a buddy who's a pilot, and when he flies into town, I go onto the rooftop and jokingly I wave. But
Yeah.
What that video shows is something we call parallax. When you're looking low to the horizon, something doesn't look like it's moving because you're seeing it lengthwise. It's like if I move my room key towards the camera, it doesn't look like it's moving right now. But if I move it like this in front of the camera, obviously you can see that motion. Same thing here. And it's just frustrating to see how many people are perpetuating these rumors because either they don't know what they don't know, or B, they're intentionally trying to monetize the gullibility of the American public.
My last question goes around the issue of who we trust as authorities. I think it's fair to say that the government probably should be doing more to sort of explain this in a frontward-facing way. There was a background call yesterday that I was on. FBI officials were like, look, we have had 5,000 tips come in through the national line on this issue of drones. We've checked them out. 100 were deemed worthy of investigation. They said a lot of this is just sort of mistaken people mistaking aircraft and just assuming it's a drone. But, there are drones up there. And this is sort of an innocuous explanation for what's happening. But there's been a proliferation of drones. There's almost 1 million that are now registered. So clearly there's more objects in the sky, but it doesn't mean it's the Iranians. Anyways, the FBI has been trying to say this stuff, the FAA, DHS as well. But we have this kind of built-in distrust of authority that's getting worse and worse. And I guess I'm kind of curious how it affects someone in your field, because, it used to be like weathermen were kind of an unimpeachable source. Meteorologists were, you trusted them because we didn't know this stuff. You guys did. But I'm wondering, do you now face a level of distrust or skepticism that you didn't earlier in your career, where people are just like, oh, you're probably part of the deep state or something like that?
The past year has been absolutely eye-opening to me. More so than, and I'm only about 6-7 years in my career. My degree is in atmospheric sciences from Harvard and MIT. I know the science, and I thought that my job would be explaining science to people. And so much of my job nowadays is convincing people science exists. I spent weeks and weeks during hurricane season trying to convince people that we didn't send the hurricanes. It's incredible to think that these ideas gain life these days, but we have to defend ourselves as scientists rather than just putting out the science. I think the important thing for the public to understand too is that the term authority doesn't mean authority on every subject. It means authority in one's area of expertise. In the case of government members, their area of expertise is drafting policy and implementing it. It's not science. And there are very few scientists who are also good communicators. What we really need, honestly, is like a chief scientist at the White House. I'm not even sure if this position exists, but like a chief scientist at the federal level who can translate everything scientific going on federally to the public. We desperately needed this during COVID. Think about how the public really struggled to understand the uncertainty. And frankly, the government did a horrible job with explaining COVID, the wishy-washiness, the back and forth, the, wildly varying policies. I can understand why there's a distrust in science. I became annoyed with scientists at that point because they did such a bad job of explaining themselves and explaining why decisions were being made. If we had someone who could both communicate, but also who understood the science, we'd be in a much better place.
Yeah, no doubt. And I just think people are inclined now to not believe anything, especially if it comes from a person of authority. There's a lot of anger and distrust at institutions, but also people who are deemed experts. Matthew, I know you're doing this, from Amsterdam? Is that right?
Yep. Last night of vacation, back to the U.S. in about 12 hours.
I got you on vacation. Oh, my God. God, what a stud to do this on vacation. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. We will have you back on the next time we have a drone freak out or something like that. Matthew Capucci, thanks so much. You should follow him on Twitter. Absolutely an essential follow. As always, turn into the Bulwark, where we give you great guests like this. Thanks, bud.
Thanks again.